All right. If you listened to the last episode I published, which would have been 2 weeks ago, that was part 1 of this 2-part series. If you haven't, I do recommend you go back and listen to that. There are some strategies and things that I recommend that you need to do before we dive into this. But if you haven't yet, that's okay as well. But by now, based off of that, you should have a clear picture of what's in your back catalog of your podcast, right? You know your top performers, you've identified underperformers, and you've started optimizing those titles, descriptions, and hopefully maybe you've started to see your back catalog kind of kick up a little bit. But here's where it gets really fun, because today we're talking about all of that content that you've already created and turning it into things that will grow your email list, generate leads, bring in revenue without creating a single new episode. Okay? And I need you to hear me when I say this, because what I am talking about and what I'm going to walk you through today is not complicated. It's not going to take you months. Most of these strategies can be set up in an afternoon, maybe a weekend, and they will continue to work for you for months and months. This is the kind of stuff that makes your podcast the cornerstone of your marketing, right? So if you didn't catch part 1, again, I'd encourage that you take a moment, go back, check that out. And then the strategies I'm sharing today are way more powerful once you've done just a really simple audit and optimization of your content first. But if you're here and you're ready, let's go. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about what can I do to bring back old episodes in a fresh, fun way. So first up, this is probably one of my favorite strategies, and it's one that I actually teach to many of my clients. I teach it in my mastermind. It's all about creating episode bundles based on specific topics, pain points, aspirations, things like that. So here's how it works. You go back to your audit, okay, from part 1, and you look at the topics that consistently resonate with your audience. Maybe you have 5 really strong episodes about growing your email list, or 4 episodes about podcast monetization, or 3 about content repurposing, right? You make those episodes and you bundle them together into a curated, really binge-worthy listening experience. And then you gate it behind an opt-in, meaning someone gives you their email address and in return, they get access to this themed curated bundle. Now you might be thinking, and I get it, but Kylie, those episodes are already free on my podcast. Why would someone give me their email address for something they can just go back and find? And I think this is a great question. I often get it when we're talking about these bundles, but here's the answer. The curation of that playlist and that bundle is the value. Your listener does not have time to scroll through 100 plus episodes, 50 plus episodes, 600 episodes, trying to figure out which ones will help them with XYZ. But if you hand them a beautifully packaged bundle that says, here are my top best 5 episodes about XYZ in the exact order that you should listen to them so that you can implement it, it's so valuable. There's no brainer opt-in. In fact, if somebody who has literally listened to all your episodes still opts in for a bundle, they're getting a ton of value because you put these together in a way that's going to help them with whatever the topic of that bundle, right? Whatever the aspiration, the pain point is. And when they listen to it as a whole with these other episodes, it's going to make more sense. It's going to come to life more, right? So you can create these bundles around the exact topics that also align with your paid offers. That's something that I love about this. So if your course is about, let's just say, podcast monetization, your bundle is your best episodes about podcast monetization. The person who downloads that bundle is the exact same person who would be interested in your course. So not only are we growing our email list, you're growing it with the right people so that you can funnel them into whatever offers you have. Now, this is not required, but you can also add a simple PDF guide or checklist or something to the bundle, even if it's just like a 1-pager in a Google Doc that says key takeaways, action steps, journaling prompts, whatever it is to make things feel even more substantial and give them something tangible that they can reference later as well. So, okay, the second thing that I love so much is building a podcast-centric quiz funnel, right? Okay, so this is truly one of my favorite things in the entire world to talk about. And if you've been around here for any amount of time, you know that quizzes are kind of my thing. And I'm going to say this now and I'll repeat it down the road as well. After I come back from my maternity leave, so probably It'll be anytime between fall and like early winter next year. I am going to be hosting a 6-week podcast quiz blitz. Okay. So basically we are going to dive into how I coach my clients in putting together a podcast-centric quiz, and we're going to do it in 6 weeks. It's going to be full attention, full, head forward. It's going to be really fun, and I'm really excited about it. And here's what I'll always say is the way I put together quizzes is very different than if you were to go to AI and have it help you put one together. It is so different, and it gets better results for obvious reasons. But if you want to be part of that, if you want to know exactly how I recommend putting together a podcast-centric quiz that actually works, actually gets people on your email list, and then converts them into paying customers, I want you in this. It's going to be so much fun. Again, it's going to be like a 6-week podcast quiz blitz, but I have a wait list open right now for you while I'm on maternity leave so that when it's open, you can be the first ones to get in there. If you want to get on the wait list, go ahead and head to podcastmarketinghub.com/quiz blitz waitlist. Quiz blitz waitlist. So quiz BLITZ waitlist. I will also link that up for you. But get on the wait list if you're interested in creating a podcast-centric quiz. If you're like, you know what, 2027, that's going to be my big freebie. It's going to be my big driver. I want you to go get on the wait list so you can join me for that 6 weeks. It's going to be really, really fun. Okay, but back to it. You know that I've been kind of a pro at really making these podcast-centric quizzes that not only bring people onto your email list, but then drive them to the podcast and your offers and nurture them, all the things, right? With Amy Porterfield, we generated over 15,000 leads. With Kathy Heller, we brought in over 2,000 qualified leads in just a couple weeks. My client, Savannah, to date has had over 10,000 people go through her quiz in less than a year. Like, it's wild, right? They work so well, and there's a specific way to put them together. That's why I recommend getting on the wait list and doing that. But here's how this connects to your back catalog. So you create a quiz that helps your listeners identify their biggest challenges, their next steps, where they're on the journey, things like that. And based on their results, you point them to a specific curated bundles or episodes, a set of resources, things like that from your existing content. So let's say that your quiz is, let's use my quiz for an example. So it's basically like, what's keeping your podcast from growing? And so someone takes it and their result is that their biggest gap is maybe their email list growth. So I send them a bundle that's all about using your podcast to grow your email list. Someone else takes it, their result might be that they need help with like the groundwork, discoverability, that type of stuff. So I send them an episode bundle or the playlist that's curated to really SEO optimization, things like that, right? Somebody is like beyond that, ready to monetize. So I send them a curated experience based on that. So do you see how powerful this is? You're not only getting the email opt-in, you're segmenting your audience at the same time. You know exactly what each person needs, which means that you can follow up with the right email sequence, the right content, maybe create an offer. Like one thing that I always find is that my clients who put together quizzes are always so astonished and interested in like, wow, I thought that results, 3 and 4 might be my top performers, but results, 1 and 2 are. Now I know what episodes I should be creating, what offers I need to create, where I can fill the gap with offers. There's so much that this quiz offers you. So this is what I mean when I say treat your podcast like a product. You're not just putting on episodes. You're building a system where your content is doing the heavy lifting for you, right? Attracting the right people, nurturing them, leading them towards your offers. That's what we want. Okay, the next thing is clipping together your top performing content. So this is kind of a fun one, especially if you're creative, if you're a creative person. I want you to take your top performing episodes, pull the highlights. I'm talking about the moments that people, DM'd you about, or the stories that really hit, the advice that was so good that, people were like stopped in their tracks, had to DM you, whatever. And I want you to clip them together into a best of compilation, right? So there are a few ways that you can use these. Maybe you create a best of episode, right? This is a great way to do it. Yes, it takes a little bit of time to like pull those pieces. But AI can help you with that. So can a VA, right? But it's really what it sounds like, right? You take 5 to 8 of your best clips and you string them together with short transitions or just things like that and release it as its own episode. So this is great for holidays, end of the year recaps, milestones like celebrating your 100th episode, things like that. Somebody who does this well is Lewis Howes. Lewis Howes of School of Greatness. Is that still the name of his podcast? No, I wonder. Anyway, he does this a lot with like themed compilations, and I always think they're really good. You can also turn this into short form social content, right? So maybe you pull 30 to 60 second clips from your best episodes, turn them into a reel, TikTok, YouTube short, whatever you want. You can also create a Start Here playlist. So create a playlist on Spotify or on a page on your website or whatever that curates your greatest hits for brand new listeners. Think of it as like a new here, start with these 5 episodes. This is also like you can do this as a bundle, which again, we're getting the email address. So it gives listeners a clear entry point instead of dumping them into a feed with 100 plus episodes, hoping they find the ones that resonate to keep them around. I really love this strategy because what I find is that it multiplies the reach of your best content without creating something new, right? And it also puts your best episodes at the front, which is what we want because as we all know as podcasters, not every episode is a home run. Just isn't. Okay, moving on. Next, I want you to consider reworking your best content into maybe something a little bit more exclusive. So this one is something that I teeter on. I like it with a caveat. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a private podcast. Now, I know these work really well for people. I touched on, was it episode 1 or this one? I can't remember. I'm recording them back to back right now, but how you could potentially turn some of your bundles or playlists into like a privately held podcast on something like Hello Audio. And sometimes I feel like creating a Hello Audio private podcast experience, like if we're going to do that, why not just create a bundle that stays live to the public, right? So you're driving people to public episodes. And so you're gaining the benefit of those downloads and the algorithm on Apple and Spotify. But I also understand how convenient the Hello Audio experience is. Like your listener gets a personalized link that they drop into whatever listening platform they have, and then boom, it's right there. Like I understand that as well. So here's the concept for a private podcast, if that's the route you want to go. Megan Yeleni, she was on my podcast a couple weeks ago. She actually does this and she does it beautifully. But you take your best performing content, right? So you could do it that way and you rework it into this private podcast experience. So again, this is a separate gated podcast feed that people can only access by opting in, right? They give you their email. They get a private RSS link that delivers episodes straight to whatever podcast app they choose. It feels exclusive. It feels premium, right? It's instantly convenient for your audience because it shows up right alongside their other podcasts that they're listening to. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, my audience has already heard these episodes. And yes, some of them have, but think about it like this. You're not just copying and pasting old episodes into a new feed. You're reworking them. You're adding fresh intros, maybe updating the context. You're organizing them in a specific sequence that tells a story or teaches a framework, or maybe you're adding like bonus commentary. There's a lot of ways to repurpose it and make it feel even juicier. So there are platforms that make this really easy to set up. Like I mentioned, Hello Audio is a great one. I've used it personally. I do think it's great. I like it. You can use a private podcast as a lead magnet, which we love, right? On its own, as a bonus inside of a paid offer. Or even as a standalone paid product, right? So imagine charging, you could do $27, $47 for a curated private podcast series that walks somebody through an entire framework. So you've curated it, you've packaged it slightly differently, and now you can sell it. So that's a great way to consider, even like a low ticket tripwire offer. Okay, the last one I want to talk about is using your back catalog to save you time and authority in terms of answering FAQs or recurring questions you have. So think about the questions that you get asked over and over and over, in your DMs, maybe in your emails, in discovery calls, just in your community. Chances are you've and hopefully, I'm really hoping that you're like, yep, I have, that you've already answered most of those questions in your podcast, right? Because when we see those repetitive questions come in, that is such a sign that we should create an episode about that. So what we can do is create an FAQ page on our website that links to a specific episode where you answer, a specific question. Someone asks, how do you help me grow my email list? You don't have to type out a novel in the DMs. You don't have to type out a novel in your email. You can send them an episode. Hey, I did an episode on this. Actually, I think would be really beneficial. Let's start there and then come back and ask any questions that you might have. Right? So now they become a listener, but you've also over-delivered value. Another thing that you can do is keep a running list of send this episode links. So have a document or a note on your phone, whatever, where you keep links to your most commonly referenced episodes. So when a question comes up, and they will, you can share that so quickly, right? You don't have to scroll through your back catalog. And then lastly, reference your own episodes in your new content. When you're recording a new episode and you mention a topic and you say, I've covered this before, I actually did a whole episode on this. I'll link it in the show note. This is a great way to drive people deeper into a specific subcategory of what you're talking about and increase downloads. The same goes for if you're teaching within a community or, whether it's your community or maybe you're guesting in somebody asks a question and you can kind of briefly answer it and say, by the way, go check out episode 105. I talked about this in more depth and you can start there, but I'm here for any questions beyond that. So this is one of those things that seems really small, but the compound effect is really massive because even if one person asks you that question and then you drop the link to 105 in the chat, a bunch of people are going to grab that, right? So I want you to think of it like this. Every time you point someone to an existing episode, you're boosting your downloads, you're building trust, you're positioning yourself as the go-to expert, and you're saving time, which is such a win-win, right? All right, now I want to bring this whole series home. So over the last 2 episodes, here's what we've covered. In part 1, we talked about auditing your back catalog, optimizing underperforming episodes, updating show notes, strategic re-airs, creating a curated listing path, all that stuff. Today, we covered creating topic-specific bundles, building a quiz, clipping together, best of content, reworking your best episodes into maybe a private podcast experience, and then using your back catalog to answer FAQs and common questions, right? That is 11 ways for you to activate your back catalog, my friend. 11 ways. It's amazing, right? Now, I'm not telling you to go and do everything right now, but maybe these are things that you start to consider and add into the, maybe quarterly you aim to do 2 or 3 of these, right? They can go a long way. So for today, just pick one, start one from this list, commit to implementing it maybe this month, this quarter. You don't have to do it all at once, right? So pick one that gets you excited, that feels really juicy, and then move forward with that. And when you do, please tell me about it, right? Send me a DM on Instagram, wherever. Like I said, the last one, I am probably going to be out for maternity leave a little bit, so might take me a while to get back, but I still love hearing that. Love hearing how these episodes support you. While I am out and releasing a little bit less content, you could always get on my newsletter. So you can go to podcastmarketinghub.com/subscribe if you want to be on my newsletter. Get on my waitlist for the podcast-centric Quiz Blitz. So again, that's podcastmarketinghub.com/Quiz Blitz waitlist. So that's with the Z. And you can get on the wait list. There's also, you can go take my quiz, podcastmarketinghub.com/quiz if you haven't done that yet. But I hope this really served you. I really loved putting this episode, this 2-part episode together. I just thought it was so jam-packed of valuable content. So hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again in 2 weeks.